So, Kev, it's time for This Week in Trading History.
Your favorite part?
It is my favorite part. And so I wanted to go back to May 24th of 1985. Now, it's actually two dates that came in this week. May 24th was actually last week, but there's another date that fell in. I'll get to it in a moment for on May 28th. But it was for Quantum Computer Services. Do you know what Quantum Computer was before it got renamed?
No clue.
Oh,
That's
yes, you
that's
do. You do. Anyway, so it was the original online services company that ended up becoming AOL, right?
You got
And
mail.
yeah, and so it was back then that Quantum Computer Services was made, and they launched in 1988 through Quantum this Apple Link. It's a personal edition for the Macintosh computers, and then later that year they launched PC Link, which was linking IBM compatible PCs as well as a joint venture with Tandy Computer. I want to know how many people remember Tandy Computers. That's like I remember that as a kid, like with the Commodores and stuff like that. Anyway, so it was the birth of AOL. And so Steve Case, who's shown in this picture, put the company together, and it was in 1989. They lost their Apple deal, and they renamed at that time to America Online. And so America Online went to go on to being a huge marketing juggernaut, right? And so those unfamiliar with there used to be a huge competitor to it called CompuServe,
Oh
and
yeah, I remember that one. That's the one I had.
yeah, and so CompuServe was all in the savvy, established tech community. That's why you had it, of course, right? And while AOL was targeting the people unfamiliar with computers. So they were where they went retail versus going to the established market, and they put together this amazing marketing plan, and then they actually went out there and did this huge push. And I wanted to play a little clip just to remind everyone what just to kind of jog the memory of AOL back then. So let's quickly play this.
You've got mail.
Do you remember that? Like that dial tone. I used to want to punch the computer back then when I heard that dial tone, and like it would take forever to connect. I mean, do you remember like there used to not be like broadband, like you could where you
Yeah.
had internet. You actually had to tie up your phone line and dial in to the internet and get access everything over the computer. It was a crazy time back then, right?
Yeah, it was really tough for you when you went to your alt news groups, right, Patrick?
Oh yeah, no, that was
You
incredibly
know the
difficult.
kind I'm talking about, Patrick. And they would come up like line by line.
Yeah. The
Don't
ASCII
laugh.
stars, right?
Don't
And
don't don't say you don't know what I'm talking about,
I don't
buddy.
know what you're talking about. I have no
No.
clue. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, let's get to the meat of it. So they had this big marketing push. So do you remember these discs?
I
Uh,
do. I
right?
actually remember sitting on the trading desk and someone laughing about how many they send out. Like it's because it was everyone. You get like three in the
There,
mail every month.
I think that they must have mailed like 100 million of these discs
Yeah.
and subsequently floppies and the CDs.
Right.
And so their marketing thing is that anyone that they could get with a mailing address, they would just like throw one of these in the mail and hope they download it and use AOL. And so I did a quick test. I went to my existing Big Picture Trading members, and I actually just went to see how many of them still have an AOL email address, and I found two of them. I still
Really?
have two. I still have two members that actually
Okay.
use an AOL email address. Can you believe that
So
it's still?
I got
That's
even a
crazy.
better. I got a better stat for you, Patrick.
Yeah, what's that?
How many people do you think still use AOL dial-up?
Oh, come on, nobody. You think so?
2.1 million Americans still use it.
What?
Yep. Oh, that
That's
was
nuts.
it was in 2015. But you know what? I should find a more recent one. But it's amazing. People like it's still going on your credit card, and they've just forgotten to get rid of it.
They just forgot to look.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So anyway, I want to get to the fun part of the story, which is so they got hot. They were just millions and millions of subscribers were pouring in, sort of like Netflix today, like people just subscribing. And they became one of the .com sensations, right, in the '99 bubble. At their peak, they were acquiring like MoviePhone and Netscape, and they turned around and at their peak in December of '99, they had a $222 billion market cap.
Like think about that. That's 99.
That's '99, and they had a
Like
$200
that's when
billion.
like money still meant something.
Yeah.
Like
And
that's crazy.
that's nuts, right? And so,
Yeah.
but then that led to the famous merger. In
Right.
2001, AOL, when things started kind of going sour and they lost all that momentum, and people started to realize that there was broadband internet coming and this dial-up stuff is dead. They said we have to redefine ourselves, right? And so that's when they attempted to merge, or not attempted, they did merge with Time Warner.
Yeah.
Right?
Unbelievable. I
was-
still remember the picture of Steve Case on the stage, like, with the Time Warner guy. Like, it was
Yes.
crazy. Like, it was like, it's etched, it's like seared into my mind.
It's so it was a $350 billion deal that today still is either mentioned as being one of the worst mergers in history, if not widely considered one of the worst in American business history of all time. Like this merger was a disaster.
Yeah.
The synergies between the two companies was brutal. AOL thought they were the shit, but yet their business was going to shit in the handbasket, and so it ended up being that it took 8 years later. So this was the other date that fell into this week in trading history. It was May 28th of 2009 when Time Warner spun off AOL after its 8-year merger. And so it was 10 years ago today that Time Warner spun it off and got rid of AOL. Eventually, it was bought by Verizon, which that turned out really well. But it was done at a remarkable market capitalization of $4.4 billion.
Unbelievable.
And that was in 2015, and so the rise and then the subsequent fall of AOL, and I wonder whether is like Tesla gonna be this generation's AOL? Like which company is it? Netflix? Like which company is going to have that rise and was the most spectacular thing in '99, and then by a decade later was nothing? Like there's some company's going to be that. I'd love to think of like, what's your vote?
I'm a little bit of a Tesla bear, so if I had to pick one, I'd pick Tesla. Like I think it'll be difficult, but who knows? You never know. Like it'll be surprising. Like think about the fact that Apple, 15 years ago was almost bankrupt or whatever. Like things change faster than people imagine. That is the one thing that you have to remember. And we all sit here and laugh at AOL Time Warner, but
Oh, I'm not laughing.
yeah, you are. At the time, it seemed pretty smart. It seemed like really, there's lots of. They were all falling all over themselves. Mark Cuban was selling his what did he sell? Like it was some crazy tech stock that he sold. Everyone wanted to get into into this industry, and they were falling all over themselves. So it's easy to kind of sit back and take pot shots at it, which is basically what we do every Friday night. But the reality is that there's a lot of pressure on these people to own these sorts of assets, and in hindsight, it's so easy, but it would be something. It would be very, very difficult at the time to say this is for sure not going to work. And this is the one thing that I think people need to remember is that in hindsight, these trades are so obvious. At the time, they're not.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know what though, but let's be realistic. Like I'll give you an example. If 5 years from now, let's just say that the Tesla Q crowd ends up being right. You can't really say that people didn't see that coming. Like, I mean, this time around, there was a fair share of people that saw the writing on the wall.
Yeah, with Tesla, I would agree with you. There is a big community, but that won't end up being the one that somebody comes and buys. It'll be somebody else reaching for, maybe it's Apple reaching for Netflix.
Maybe.
And listen, I was the first one to say that when Facebook bought WhatsApp, that he had overpaid. He paid $1 billion for that app, right? Or was it Instagram? I can't remember. Regardless, it's a lot of these fellows and women, because I was just laughing. I was looking at the top 3 worst technology takeovers, and I thought for sure that AOL Time Warner would be number 1. You don't want to, but there's not. It's number 2. Do you want to guess what number 1 is, Patrick?
No, I don't want to guess.
HP buying Compaq. Do you remember Compaq?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was Carly Fiorina. I can't. What was her name here? Fiorina.
Yeah.
That's it. Fiorina. And she bought. That was a big, huge.
That was a
very
huge
bold
deal.
play. And it was something that was going to be very smart. And I'm sure at the time a lot of people said it was a smart, move. And before you kind of say, well, no, there was lots of detractors. Don't forget there was lots of detractors when Steve Jobs decided he was going to make Apple stores.
Yeah.
And I was one of them. I thought that was the stupidest thing in the world. I remember going to Boston, and I think there was at the time 3 or 4 different Apple stores. And I said to my family, I said to my wife, we got to go see one of these Apple stores. This guy is gone and decided that he's going to make these stores. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Dell tried this. It's never going to work. I went there and I changed my mind immediately. I said, oh my goodness, this is a different environment. And I realized I was wrong. But there was, I still remember there was all sorts of analysts that said he was going to bankrupt the company. He was going to do the exact same thing that Dell. And here's one for you. Gateway Computers. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Gateway Computers tried to make stores and they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So, for us to take cheap shots from the peanut gallery is easy, but it's hard at the time to decide which ones are going to do well and which ones are going to do not.
That's why they get paid millions, right?
Yeah, well, anyways, I think most of them don't work. So I'm with you, Patrick.
All right, let's move on.